evening, everybody. This is the season finale of our financial seminar, and I must say this has been an absolute amazing journey. Month after month, we were introduced to some financial topics. They were interesting, and I personally learned a lot. Now, this evening we're going to be talking about no bad debt. That will be our topic for this evening. But before we get into things, we're going to pray. And this will be done by Andae Ricketts.
Let us pray. Dear kind and compassionate Father, I just want to thank you so much for this another opportunity to have a seminar. Dear Lord, I ask that as the presenter speaks, that those who are watching will learn something new and will be able to apply what they have learned into their daily lives and also with people who they meet. Thank you so much once more. In your precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we're going to welcome Jada Francis with our financial quote, after which we welcome Tavia Kelly with our icebreaker.
The financial quote for this episode is, financial peace isn't the acquisition of stuff. It's learning to live on less than you make, so you can give money back and have money to invest. You can't win until you do this, while it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor.
Today's icebreaker will be 2 truths and a lie, where I'll be telling you 3 statements and you tell me which one you think is the lie. Ready? Statement number 1, a car can be an asset and a liability. Statement number 2, to be wealthy, you have to come from a wealthy background. Statement number 3, you want a budget to maintain your wealth. I'll repeat the statements. Remember, you're telling me which one you think is the lie. A car can be an asset and a liability. Statement number 2, to be wealthy, you have to come from a wealthy background. Statement number 3, you want a budget to maintain your wealth. I'll give you 3 seconds. The lie is, to be wealthy, you have to come from a wealthy background.
Once again, we'll be exploring the world of debt, and joining us this evening is Mr. Andrew Carty. Mr. Carty is a financial expert and lecturer over at Northern Caribbean University. We also encourage you, of course, to interact with us and stick around for the giveaway that we have in store for you. But before Mr. Carty comes, here is Denton Kelly with a special item.
See them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. Them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. See them on them biscuit in a Parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop, cause every bit them a fi eat up. That see them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. Them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. See them on Nyam biscuit in a Parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop, cause every bit them a fi eat up. That pass the biscuit. Them a share biscuit. Everybody get biscuit except Mr. Hood. See them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. Them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. See them on Nyam biscuit in a Parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop, cause every bit them a fi eat up. That pass the biscuit. Them a share biscuit. Everybody get biscuit except Mr. See them on Nyam biscuit in a Parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop, cause every bit them a fi eat up. That pass the biscuit. Them a share biscuit. Everybody get biscuit except Mr. Wholeness. A them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. Them a pass the biscuit on the left hand side. See them on Nyam biscuit in a parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop. Cause every bit them a fi eat up that passy biscuit. Them a share biscuit. And everybody get biscuit. Except Mr. See them on Nyam biscuit in a parliament. Them a make sure that none don't drop. Cause every bit them a fi eat up that.
All right, welcome, Mr. Carty. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us this evening. I'm absolutely excited to hear what we'll be talking about this evening. No bad debt. I'm Charlize Robinson, and we want to set some foundation. As I mentioned, we'll be talking about no bad debt. But some of us, we want to know exactly what a debt is. So, explain to us.
Well, first of all, let me say very much that I'm very excited to be a part of your program. I am very happy to see the initiative that the Philmelodia Club has undertaken. So kudos to you and your club.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you.
So when we actually speak about debt, what we're talking about is that obligatory commitment to having to make a repayment for an amount that was previously borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, that amount is going to be repaid over a period of time. Essentially though, what it means is that you would have been able to access certain resources upfront, usually that is cash, and then over time, you have to repay that amount. So that borrowing creates that obligation to make repayments later on.
Awesome. But we want to know, are there some forms of debt, or how do we classify different forms of debt?
Well, actually, depending on the context in which you are treating the subject, whether you're looking from it from a business perspective or from an individual perspective, there are different kinds of debt. I figure that we're going to focus on the individual side. So when we speak of the various forms of debt, there are many different types. They can vary based on the whether or not an asset is used to secure the loan. So we speak about using a collateral. That would refer to what we call a secured loan. So an asset is used to guarantee basically the repayment of such a loan. Of course, there are other loans that do not use a security or collateral. Those then would be unsecured. We also can refer to loans in the form of whether or not their interest is going to be fixed or it may vary over the life of the loan. So there are various types of loans.
Okay.
But you must also...
That is interesting. Go ahead.
I was going to say that there are also other forms of debt other than loans. You must remember we have various kinds of loans in the first place, such as mortgages that may be used to purchase property. There's also automobile loans. And let us not forget the credit debt, which is a short-term debt, but a debt nonetheless.
Okay, that's interesting. So we've set the foundation, but I want to know personally, is there a specific cost of debt per se?
Well, every debt comes at a cost, and that cost is what we refer to as the interest. And the interest on various debts will be different based on the kind of loan it is and also the creditworthiness of the borrower. So when a person is deciding on borrowing, it is important that they consider the cost or the interest that is going to be applied to the debt. Now, sometimes we can take steps to manage the cost of these debts. For example, if we have a 3-year loan, for example, we can extend the loan, negotiate for a longer repayment time, say for example to 5 years. While that may make our loan payments more manageable, it actually will add to the amount of interest that is repaid over the life of the loan. So
And
the longer the loan,
actually, that's a very important point to note, and I'm happy you mentioned that.
right? So we have to consider the cost of the repayment of that loan. And then, of course, even though you may not see great differences in the amounts of interest that are charged by various lending institutions, how the interest is actually calculated can also impact the cost of the loan. Whether the interest is going to be calculated on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis or an annual basis, that will also factor into the overall cost of the loan.
Okay, so from a financial point of view, from a financial expertise point of view, would you say or would you recommend that debts be avoided? Should they be avoided, is my question.
Well, let's put it this way. Remember, in the first place, that debt means that you're able to access those resources up front. So you get to access cash up front. If you're able to access cash, it means you can use it for opportunities that may arise. So I would not suggest that you try to avoid debt completely. As a matter of fact, most persons will not be able to avoid debt. When you enter the financial life cycle phase of the accumulation phase, when you start accumulating assets, perhaps as a young person, just getting employed, just beginning to try to purchase a home, purchase a car, and so on, more than likely, you may have to borrow to finance those items. So it is not necessarily the case that you try to avoid it. What you must try to understand is that, one, debt comes with that obligation for repayment. Right? And it comes at that cost. So if it is that you can actually avoid debt as much as possible, then you can do that. But remember, debt can be used to also advance you financially because you get to access resources up front. But that said, then, it means when you engage in debt, you must be careful how you intend to use that debt. I always suggest that you should use debt to not get yourself out of a situation, but instead use debt to put yourself into a position.
I love that point of view.
And by this, I mean simply that if you're going to borrow, it should not be to get yourself out of a jam. It should not be to pay off expenses that you would have incurred already. Rather, it should be to access resources, to access money, able to advance yourself. So if you take student loans, that is being putting yourself in a position. You're to advance yourself. If you take out a mortgage, that is setting yourself into a position, because owning a home is one of the most significant decisions that you can take. So when you're considering a loan, please, it should not be to get yourself out of a situation, but rather to put yourself into a position.
Right. Interesting. But a recommendation for some of us, myself included, who is a struggling university student, as we mentioned earlier and as we established earlier, there are different forms of debt, but how do we choose the best form per se?
Well, you have to first recognize that you are going to have to match the kind of debt you want with what you're trying to achieve. So in order to be able to choose the right debt, you need to be able to shop around, know what the offerings are from various institutions, right? So you can shop around to get the best rates, the best terms for the loan. Because remember, while some persons may not necessarily have the information or the knowledge, right? There are actually a lot of options that are available. As a matter of fact, institutions are competing to be able to sell loans to consumers. And so advantage to make sure that they are able to get the best rates and the best terms and conditions of these loans. So what you want to do is to make sure that you are informed, know what the options are, and then of course ensure that the debt you're going to incur is going to be one that can set you up into a position.
Interesting. But how do we, or I should mention, what if, because our knowledge is kind of fresh, I should say, on the whole financial matter, especially for some of us as young people. I want to know, what is the result, or is there a particular result of choosing a bad debt? Is there some result to it, or consequence,
Yes, there are. While engaging in debt can bring very positive outcomes, if you engage in the wrong form of borrowing, the wrong kinds of debt, that can lead to disastrous consequences. Remember, some loans actually use security or collateral. The repayment of the loan is essential. In the event that some loans are not repaid, you can result in assets being forfeited. So you can lose assets that are used to secure the loan. Moreover, you will damage your credit, right? So you will be less credit worthy. So in the future, when you are ready to take on additional debt, it may be more difficult for you to obtain such credit, or if you do, it may be at a higher cost or interest to you. Moreover, remember that it will damage your financial future, because when you fail to be able to secure the right kind of debt, it's going to lead to financial consequences. And as you dig deeper into debt and you fall prey to the various traps that are there, then it means you're going to have to find a way to dig yourself out, and that can really cause tremendous.
Right. Tremendous. Yeah. So, in the event this happens, what are your recommendations, or what do you suggest, or the technique you suggest to someone who might want to get out of this situation of a bad debt, per se?
Well, if somebody falls into the trap of having bad debt, it is not the end of the road. There is help. There is actually many ways that you can find yourself to be cleared of debt. One such way, though, is to ensure that you have a plan. You must decide on a deliberate way that you want to get out of debt. This could mean that you make sure you create your budget. You're going to make sure that you try to pay down the most expensive debt, because usually what happens is that people engage in multiple borrowing. And so when they have one debt there, one there, it builds up. And so the obligation to repay all those debt becomes unmanageable. So one of the first things, though, to tackle are those higher interest debt. So you get to pay off those most expensive ones first. So it means setting aside an additional amount each month or each period so that you pay down the debt faster. It could also mean that whatever windfall, any extra cash, any bonus that you get, you direct those to trying to pay down your debt. Of course, there's also the matter of going to the institution that you might have borrowed from and to renegotiate the debt. It could mean an extension of the debt to make the payments more manageable. But of course, that might cause you to not default on your loan, but it will in the end also cause the loan to generate more interest. There is also what we call a consolidation loan that many institutions offer. What it is that the institutions offer a single loan which would pay off all the other loans that you have. So instead of having multiple loan payments or debt repayments, you now have only one to focus on, and it's usually at a lower amount than the others combined. One should note, though, that once you have a debt consolidation loan, it signals that you might have had financial difficulties. So it does lower your credit score because it suggests that you might not have managed your finances well.
interesting. Also, we see where budgeting comes to play, and we spoke about budgeting in our first episode. Listen, this discussion was strategic, and I personally enjoyed what we spoke about today. So, to all those watching, viewing, interact with us, share with us what you found vital. Mr. Carty, we want to thank you once again for joining us this evening, and we wish you absolute joy in what you do. We realize that you really enjoy talking about the financial aspect of life, and we wish you all the best. So once again, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
That was Mr. Andrew Carty speaking to us on the topic of no bad debt. Our giveaway segment is up next with Davonia Christie. I am your host, Charlize Robinson, and I'm signing off until next semester. Walk good and take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's financial seminar. Our giveaway question for this final episode is to list 2 consequences of bad debt. That is, list 2 consequences of bad debt. Head on over to our IG page at philmelodia_club with your answer. That is club with 3 B's. Thank you.
Hi guys, welcome to the season finale of our financial seminar, and it has been an absolute success. I am so grateful to all the persons who made this possible. I'd like to especially thank a few persons who we could not have done it without them. So that is Jewelry Media, Chosen Films, and I'd like to also thank the persons who did the very lovely specials that we had. So that's Santorna Clark, Alia Bryant, and Denton Kelly. And I cannot not thank our exec members, Savannah Matthews, Andae, Ricketts, Tatianna Peart, Charlize Robinson, Tavia Kelly, Jada Francis, Patricka Haldane, L'Oreal Sharp, Davonia Christie, Abbigayle Brown, Adrienne Johnson. And I have to thank our presenters. That is Nicole McFarlane, Andrew Carty, and Justina Lewis. Apparently that's me. I'd also like to especially thank God, of course, because how could we have done this all without God? I'd like to thank our host, especially Charlize Robinson, who came with the vibes every single month. The presenters, again, I'd like to still thank them because, they put in the work, they gave us the knowledge that we really needed. Thank you to our viewers. You made this possible. You watched our seminars, you promoted our flyers, and I'm so happy that you could have been here with us. We look forward to next semester, and next semester is filled with collaborations from other clubs and more insights on financial issues and financial aspects that involves you personally. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again next semester.